let's talk about suet in the winter as it's getting cold, and I think we're all concerned about. We always wonder, how do the birds stay warm? I mean, they have such little bitty bodies, and they've got to constantly, get that nutrition in to stay warm.
Yeah, suet is a great food for them because it provides one of the things that gives them energy, and the heat comes from the things that they eat. Fat has more energy in it than anything else. Of course, with some seeds, you get fat content in the seed, but the suet, I'll bring one up again. It's really mostly fat.
Yeah.
And cornmeal and flour. So it's good for them. It's very nutritious and gives a lot of, it's a great source for energy for when these guys are trying to stay warm.
Yeah.
And so it's one of the foods. I will say also, if you don't have a suet feeder or a little suet cage, just take this and just cut it up in little squares, just like brownies, and just put it out. Lay it in your bountiful bowl.
Yeah.
And they'll come and peck on it. I have a suet log that I made. By suet log, I mean I just took a big piece of wood. I drilled 1.5-inch holes into it, about that far, around them. And I cut these in little squares, like I said, like brownies, and just poke them in the holes.
Yeah.
The birds come up and hang on. It's just like natural. It's like a little tree there. It's like a dead tree. Woodpeckers love it. They hang on there and eat the suet right out of it. Suet, you can't go wrong in the wintertime. And of course,
and are there
kibbles and all
any
too.
certain suets that are any better in winter than any others? Because I know a lot of them can melt and get really nasty in the summer.
Two basic types of suet. One, which we showed, is this one right here. It has more flour or cornmeal in it to make it a little more solid. That really helps when it's hot outside, and the ones with more fat in them tend to melt or drip a little bit. These won't do that. So the suet, they call them doughs. Suet doughs tend to be good all year, but if you're getting into really hot weather, use these. The other type is, you might say the same flavors, but there's more of a fat content and less of the flour or cornmeal content, so they're softer. If you get above 90, 95 degrees, they may tend to drip a little bit. But below that, especially in cold weather, they're better because they're not as hard. It's easier for the birds to get the fat out.
Right.
And like I said, great food for the birds.
So what other type of food is good to put out in the winter, and why is it so important to make sure that you're feeding birds during the winter?
Well, it is harder for them to get food in the winter. I think we recently talked about the fall slowdown, where there's so much natural food out there into the early part right before winter. But then as we get further into the winter, the natural foods start getting lower and lower. The insects have all but disappeared, and these guys have to subside on old dried berries and fruit and things that they can find. It's harder. So any of the food you put out is going to help them. Some of the Cole's blends, one of my favorite is Cole's Special Feed or bird seed. It has sunflower meats, which all the birds can eat, not just the seed-eating type birds, but things like wrens who really can't crack seeds very well, but they can eat the sunflower meats. So Cole's Special Feeder and all the other Cole's blends. Pure sunflower meats are just fantastic. That's like filet mignon for the birds. All the birds can eat it, even the little warblers will eat some of it, who are not really seed eaters at all. Everybody likes sunflower meats. The Cole's hot meats are a good way to feed pure sunflower without the squirrels eating it, because it's infused with chili pepper oil, makes it a little hot for the squirrels, so you can put it right in a bowl, just pile it in here, close to a deck railing or something where squirrels can get on there, but when they get there, there's nothing for them to eat because they don't care for the hot meats. So any kind of good bird seed with a high sunflower content is going to be a real gathering place for the birds in the wintertime and will really help them survive.
Yeah. So. And is there any certain degree that it gets to where, survivability, I mean, it's really, a question of whether they can survive, or how do they stay warm? It always seems like they're so cold, and you see them fluffing up their feathers and that kind of thing. Yeah,
they know how to survive. They've been here. They live outside. It's funny, I was thinking about animals the other day. I think I saw a deer go by out in the back, and I looked at it, they've got a little fur, but it gets really cold in the wintertime. And of course, they were standing out there, it was raining on them. So how do they do that? Well, we wouldn't be able to do that very well. Animals are not made like us. They're a little different. They can handle it a little better. And the birds are very good at that. They're also very good at finding food, even in the wintertime. they survive or they wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
I look at the little bitty chickadees, my goodness, and little nuthatches. They stay here all winter. It's snow on the ground. There's not much food. They can't even find it.
Yeah.
They can get by for a few days.
Yeah.
Especially if there's a good feeder close by. That's when you really see them hit the feeders, and that's when it's important for them to get that. Would any of them die if you didn't feed them? Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not.
Just makes
They
surviving
may,
a little easier.
if it's really, really bad winter and the food's really low, they could. So you help their survivability. It's just a good feeling to feed them.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they don't mind the food being there and easy to get to either.